Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are playing some Turbodepths, which is something that I am somewhat known for these days. So this deck uses Dark Depths, so this has 10 ice counters on it. When it has no ice counters on it, you get a 20/20. Now you can either pay 3 mana to remove each ice counter, or you strip them all with Hexmage and just get a 20/20, or you make a copy that has no ice counters and then you end up with a 20/20. That is the entire way that our deck wins. We've got a bunch of tutors like Sylvan Scrying, which puts lands to our hand, crop rotations, which put the land straight into the battlefield, and then a little bit of Once Upon a Time to set up our opening hands. We've got some fast mana in Spirit Guide and Lotus Petal to power this all out. We have loads of different disruption/protection pieces. So, Not of This World, protect against removal, Thoughtseizes, Inquisition, and Duress to try and mess with our opponent's hand. So if they're trying to do something quicker than us, we can disrupt it, or we can take out that piece of removal that we need to, or whatever. And then we have some Pithing Needles for Wasteland mainly, but sometimes Caracas and other bits and pieces too. And we have a one-of Disruptor Flute, which I've been testing, and it has been going relatively well. I think you could play this as another discard effect as well if you wanted to. But we're trying out the Disruptor Flute again. This can be a Pithing Needle, or it can make your opponent's Swords to Plowshares cost 4, and that's pretty handy too. Our mana base is a fetch land mana base. We have a few silver bullets like Ghost Quarter to blow up opposing like Caracas if we've already needled the Wasteland. Or if we don't have a needle, we can go and get this to blow up a Wasteland, force the action, which means that we go over the top and get our 20/20. Boseiju, which can do similar things as well as blowing up artifacts. Bojuka Bog for the graveyard decks that go underneath us. And Sejiri Steppe to protect. Sideboard-wise, Leyline of the Void is kind of mandatory at the moment, given the nature of Ouphe spells being the best and most played deck in the format. We have a couple of Collector Ouphe for the artifact combo decks and Storm and things. A couple of Sylvan Safekeeper, so we've got 4 creatures that get found off of the Once Upon a Time. We got a full set of Abrupt Decay. These can blow up things like Magus of the Moon, Harbinger of the Seas, Ensnaring Bridge, a whole bunch of stuff. And then we have another Not of This World. If we need more protection against removal, we can board in the Not of This World and the Sylvan Safekeepers. And we're trying 2 Disruptor Flutes. I think 2 might be too many here, but again, we're trying it out. So we played this exact list, I think, last week or the week before on the channel. So we're just trying it out again and seeing if I like it. I've tried a few other builds on my own with different numbers of Disruptor Flutes. I quite like stripping out one of these Disruptor Flutes for another piece of discard. We're going to try double Disruptor Flute in the board. It is a flexible card, and given the nature of Legacy right now is quite volatile, like every sort of couple of weeks it's shifting quite a bit. So we had a load of show and tell decks all over the place, and they've completely dropped off now. And then we've got the blue-black Reanimator deck slowly creeping back up to being one of the best decks. We've got mono-red sort of falling by the wayside a little bit at times. So there's lots of ebb and flow in Legacy right now, which is why I wanted to try this particular selection of things out, because this gives us flexibility. If we know exactly what we're trying to play against, then we can sculpt our deck slightly differently, but we need to be a little bit more, okay, we could be facing anything, let's try and be flexible. If you would like some more information about this deck, then I have a Patreon linked in the description, which has a guide that is over 50 pages long, so you can definitely check out with Sideboard Guide and all that sort of jazz too. But back today, like and subscribe, and let's just settle in for some wonderful 2020 action. For free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping on high-end singles, classic products, and full sets, check out 3for1 Trading. Whether it's the legacy or pre-modern that I play on this channel, or even vintage and old school, they've got you covered. Find them through the link in the description of this video and use my code COW3 for free worldwide shipping on your first order over $500 or euros. This is a turn 2 2020 with double Not of This World backup. I think that is acceptable. So we have 2 choices on our first turn. We can lead off with the Urborg so that if we naturally draw the Dark Depths, we don't have to go through a crop rotation line to get there. Alternatively, we can lead off on the Bayou, and that way if our opponent has a Wasteland, then we can get rid of our problem there. But what's going to happen here is our opponent is going to make a turn 1 Balustrade Spy and kill us. Thoughtseize. Okay, they're going to take the crop rotation, because that can shoot up with Bojuka Bog. Now, are they going to kill us on turn 1, or are they taking the turn off here? This might be Thoughtseize and then Dark Ritual, Elvish Spirit Guide, Balustrade Spy and kill us. They took the crop rotation, which was the correct pick. Are we dead this turn, or do we get the chance to try and draw into another crop rotation? It feels like we're dead. Sure. A turn 1 protected kill on the play. 99% of the time, every deck is going to lose to that, which is why a lot of people hate Ouphe spells. Okay, what have we got here? This is probably the green build. We got the Disciples here and the once upon a time, so they're probably having enough to play things like Force of Vigor, but that's fine. We will concede the game. 4 Leyline of the Void, please, and we would like these Collector Ouphes. This is not really a game where we need Not of This World. Hand Disruption is useful. Pithing Needles are pretty useful. They can name Goblin Charbelcher, which is definitely something our opponent has access to. I don't think this is a Sejiri Steppe or a Ghost Quarter matchup either. So they can go. We definitely want the Bojuka Bog though, and the Boseiju can blow up the Charbelcher if they play and pass. So you might be asking yourself, why are we running Collector Ouphe alongside Lotus Petal? Well, Collector Ouphe shuts off a lot of their deck and only shuts off the Lotus Petal. And the speed of our opponent's deck means that we need to try and get Collector Ouphe into play as quick as possible. Having a bunch of things to make it so you can play a turn 1 Collector Ouphe is pretty good. So we can probably just get rid of this Disruptor Flute and call it a day there. This has turn 1 Graveyard Hate or a turn 1. Yeah, we can turn 1 2020 as well. Alright, like a turn 1 lethal threat is not a bad place to be. Now obviously our opponent's deck is pretty speedy. So we go Urborg, Lotus Petal, play Hexmage. And then we have Spirit Guide, Crop Rotation for Dark Depths if our opponent goes for like a slower line. But we could just be dead on turn 1 still, even through what we have. Such is the nature of this Ouphe spells world that we find ourselves living in. Would like to see them like Dark Ritual out of Baragoyf or something. That is a play that our opponent has available to them out of the sideboard quite often in these decks. A Jack-o'-lantern, sure. That does not strike me as a power play. Okay, so we should be able to give our opponent a bit of their own medicine. Alright, so not bad. Obviously, our turn 1 kill involves us having to actually have a second turn and attack, so it's not quite as egregious as what our opponent's doing. I like how he's sideboarded here. I think we just go right back in. On the draw, things become a lot more difficult. We probably need to make sure we have a leyline in our opener. They didn't see leyline this previous game, which is a good sign for us. This hand is not really keepable anyway. Where's one of those tasty leylines I've heard so much about? So when you're playing against Ouphe spells, the entire game is just shaped in a different fashion. I think we're just mulling to leyline here. Okay. Keep this. So we have Swamp, Leyline, Dark Depths, Hexmage. So we just need to find a black source. And if our opponent's on Charbelcher, unfortunately we got rid of our Pithing Needle. The Charbelcher lines tend to take an additional turn. So maybe we can draw something that allows us to kill our opponent or disrupt them. Disciple of Frail Eyes. Sure, just playing a tap land. Chromox. Okay. Understand form. This might be to get it out of their hand so we can't Thoughtseize it because they know we're a Thoughtseize deck. Okay. We're only a mana source away, but our combo is a little bit slow if we do it this way. It has to be like a turn 4 thing, but hopefully the leyline will hold back the tide of our opponent's deck until we can try and win. Cabal Ritual. This doesn't fill me with a great amount of joy. Undercity Informer. Okay. Just getting a guy in. It can maybe beat down and do some other stuff. So, do I play Dark Depths so that if I draw a black source we can go? I think so. So we could play the Thespian stage out here, but I think just playing out the Dark Depths makes more sense. So we have a bunch of draws that just win us the game. But our opponent probably has similar in terms of things like Force of Vigor or whatever. A Sylvan Scrying. It's not the one we want. So any piece of mana can be fast mana or slow mana now will get us there. And mana is quite an abundant thing in our deck. And you can keep beating down with your mediocre man. Alright, a Dark Ritual. A Balustrade Spy. They're going to mill us, presumably. Yep. They milled over a Collector Ouphe and a land. The Balustrade Spy does block for a turn. Not attacking with Undercity Informer is interesting there. Okay, so this is going to be the Hexmage line because this costs us fewer resources. And our opponent does have access to a green land over there, which means we can Thespian stage into a Garden of Freyalise, which gives us the green mana to then Sylvan Scrying for another Dark Depths. It's a bit of a long way about doing it, but I'll take it. I don't believe our opponent's going to board in Disruption for us. They should just generally be trying to kill us. Hand Disruption is fine. Ways of blowing up enchantments, fine. But they're not going to interact with the creature here. Alright, so we will attack the opponent with our massive creature. They will chump block. Then we will turn this into a green source, and then we can shut down all the artifacts, which is probably better than anything else we can do. Is our opponent dead? Did we get there? I would like to have a green source, please. Glad you could help, opponent. And another green source, sure. We will attack. Force of Vigor, hitting our Leyline of the Void. Okay. There's still 20 damage in. I guess they can mill themselves and get the Narcomoeba down. That's pretty annoying. But we can then Hexmage... we can then Sylvan Scrying for the Bojuka Bog here. So I think we go Sylvan Scrying, get Bojuka Bog. For the Bojuka Bog, try and take out your graveyard. And then we'll play the Collector Ouphe and shut off some mana as well. They are probably going to cast this Memory's Journey in response. They have the green mana up for it. What can they put back in here? Thassa's Oracle, Lotus Petal, Lotus Petal. But we're going to shut down their ability to have blue mana by playing the Collector Ouphe. And they obviously don't know we're doing that until after this trigger resolves. Do they have a Reanimate? So I can maybe do some weird stuff with that. They're going to get some creatures back in terms of when they cast this Memory's Journey and jump the Poxwalkers back out. They got the Lotleth Giant as well, which is an interesting piece to try and beat things like Surgical Extraction and Fairy Macabre. You'll probably work out 2 cards our opponents had. I only see 2 red Spirit Guides. They could have a red Spirit Guides in hand. How many Elvish? 1, 2... Only 2 Elvish Spirit Guides. They're in the exile. There is one in exile. So they probably... Oh no, there's a third one there. So that's all 4 accounted for. Okay. Memory's Journey, targeting Dark Ritual, Dark Ritual, Dark Ritual. Interesting. Then we will add another little creature to the board. So they don't have any black mana to use those Dark Rituals if they're relying on this Chrome Mox for their black mana. So they can try a little race here. Yep, so coming in for 9. They have 9 next turn. But we also have another blocker next turn, which has first strike. So I'm not going to block this turn. I want to keep their mana under wraps as much as possible. Okay, black, black. Let's play this. Let's cast a Pithing Needle, naming Goblin Charbelcher. We did see that they were running Goblin Charbelcher as well. It was in their pile. In comes 2020. Under the bus this goes. Then we can block a Poxwalker. And then kill them with our Marit Lage. I'm going to leave our Collector Ouphe. We can take 6. That puts us to 3. Our opponent's not going to have any direct damage. That'd be weird. So the reason I went for naming Charbelcher here is I don't think they're going to have like an Underseated form that's going to make any difference here. And if they can somehow get rid of our Collector Ouphe, they also have to get rid of our Pithing Needle. Alright, we won the match. Good guys triumph, I guess. Let's go to round number 2. I don't particularly like this hand. It has a lot of mana and can maybe do some stuff, but we're just... I guess we could find one of our combo pieces here. Sylvan Scrying for the next piece. Am I going to talk myself into keeping this one? I think we're going to give it a whirl, actually. Let's try it out. So we get a free spell first, and then we can see what we're going to Sylvan Scrying for. We have a Dark Depths. Okay, so I can play out a Bayou and Sylvan Scrying before our opponent has access to things like Daze and such. Let's go and get ourselves a Thespian stage. So we have a turn 3 2020 that can't be counterspelled. Now, Source of Plowshares obviously exists, and there's Wastelands and things to consider. But our hand is at least Thoughtseize proof. Alright, Windswept Heath. Is this going to be... Okay, a Tundra. So, Nomads in Court. Right, we're on some breakfast. Not of This World is certainly one of the sort of cards I'm interested in, but we are dead to our opponent's next turn if they have the Cephalid Illusionist. This matchup used to be pretty good, and then once Nadu came out, this matchup got a lot worse for us. Because there's just too many things that we have to consider when we play this matchup. Because they have this Graveyard-based combo, they have this Nadu-based combo, they've also got Swords to Plowshares. Alright, they're not going for anything there. Or they might be doing it second main phase. Interesting to attack there. If they are going to combo this turn, which suggests they might not combo this turn. Okay, they might think they've got one more turn than they do if we just play out the Dark Depths here. Because from their perspective, we need one more mana, but they'll have already seen that we've got Elvish Spirit Guide in our deck. Please don't kill me, opponent. I would appreciate that a great deal. I'd also like you to not play a blocker. Like, if I can make them chump block with Nadu, that's something, but they're going to draw 8 cards first. And I don't like our chances into that. Alright, there's a Hedge Maze. Please don't kill me, opponent. Once upon a time, when we ran Steely Resolve in our sideboard, when the mono-white initiative deck was at its peak, it used to be really funny to board it in against the Cephalid Breakfast decks, because you named Wizard, and they couldn't target their Cephalid Illusionist anymore. That's how I qualified for European Legacy Masters a while back. Alright, what we got here? Is this a Nadu? So that's not the worst case scenario. But ain't good either. Okay, so now we're on the question of, do they have Swords to Plowshares main deck? They do. Okay. Do they have a white source, and do they have a counterspell for this? Nadu putting the lands directly into play is certainly some nonsense. But our plan involves making a 2020, drawing Sejiri Steppe, and punching through. Or they don't hit a land, and we force through a chump block here. They have no white mana right now, so we are in an okay spot, considering they have a Nadu combo assembled. Now, they're about to rip the top 4 cards of their library, which might well find a white source. It doesn't matter what land we play here. I don't believe so. Let's just play out Bayou. It's not really what the game is about at this stage. Okay. They're going to rip some cards, and then they're going to see about chump blocking. Or they're just going to chump block straight up. Are they going to draw some more cards before it dies? They are. There is an island. That does not cast Swords to Plowshares. But if they have lands in hand, they can brainstorm a land on top so that they can have access to this plow. Another plow. Well, we're not beating double plow, so we need to hope they don't have a second white source. Alright, brainstorm. I've got another Nadu for us to try and get through next turn as well. The Misty Rainforest they just put on top in the exact play that I suggested. So we Not of This World to protect our guy. And then we know they have another plow. I'm just going to scoot this one up because we're not going to beat this card advantage, and they might just be able to assemble Illusionist combo. I don't need to show them that we have Not of This World. So we need the ley lines because their turn 2 combo is kind of scary. We also need more protection from their removal spells. So these are the sort of things that we are looking at boarding in. We could board in removal and try and go that line, which is fine but not great. I think we're just going to board out some like Pithing Needles. We're still looking for 2 more cuts here. Ghost Quarter is okay here because it can hit the as a saga, but we need to get rid of something. And unfortunately that's the thing that's on the chopping block here. I'll take out 1 Spirit Guide as well. This matchup is pretty awkward. If they could ban Nadu and make this matchup a lot better for us again, I would be very grateful. We're also not a deck that can run things like Curse Totem, although Curse Totem only stops one thing anyway. It doesn't stop the Shuko. You can board in Collector Ouphe just to stop Shuko, but there's only so many things you can board because there's a core of our deck that we need to have access to. We're probably just going to die to Nadu combo with a hand this slow. And we have to mulligan. Okay, this is not perfect, but I'm going to keep it. So we're probably going to get rid of a Thoughtseize here. So we're going to shut off their Illusionist combo. And then we're going to go get ourselves a Bayou. And we just need 1 more mana source to get there at this point. So let's Thoughtseize and see what they're working with. Hopefully we can stop whatever we're worried about. Pithing Needle, Cephalid Illusionist, Nadu, Nomads. I could take the Nadu. That's kind of the thing that scares me the most. Now, Pithing Needle can obviously name one of our combo pieces, but we have 2 different combo pieces in our deck, so we can just find the other combo piece. We're more likely to lose the Lotus Petal to Prismatic Ending than anything else. So we'll keep this around. There's a Tundra. I suspect we go for a Ponder here. But it's possible that they jam either the Needle or the Nomads. I'm hoping they don't play the Needle and name Vampire Hexmage. But if they do, then our deck is dedicated to drawing the combo pieces that we need, and we do still have a Boseiju that we can use to blow up a Pithing Needle in a pinch. When you play against bad matchups with this deck, you have to work out what you can afford to give. And you have to say, okay, I'm going to lose to these lines if they happen to have them and play towards them. You can't always beat everything in a deck that has so many different facets. Alright, they've gone for the Pithing Needle. Are they going to name the Thespian stage, or are they going to name the Hexmage? Hexmage is the quicker route normally, so if they want more time, naming Hexmage is fine here. They've named Thespian stage. Alright. Thank you, opponent. I appreciate that. I'll play both of these out. I will cast a Sylvan Scrying. And I will go and get a Dark Depths and deploy the Dark Depths. So we have a 2020 next turn. Now our opponent can ponder their way into some Swords to Plowshares, but there's only so much we get to do here. Like, we've taken a bite out of their hand, we've stopped them being able to kill us super early doors. Alright, they're showing us a land that we didn't know they had, so we're keeping more information back. Another Dark Depths. Okay. Can I have a friend? We can have a friend. That's pretty exciting. So they should be pondering with the Tundra here, looking for a plow. If they do nothing here, that's also kind of scary. That suggests they have a plow. Okay, I'm not just going to play straight into that. A crop rotation. That is okay. They haven't shown us counter magic yet. We will go for it on this next turn cycle. So we want to draw like a crop rotation or a Not of This World or a Sylvan Safekeeper or a piece of discard. And we found one of those. What have they got here? Are they going to bin it? Okay, they don't need lands. Right, here comes the Ponder. I think we still go at end step because they might have prismatic endings, so it's best to wait until we get past the sorcery speed removal. They did not shuffle off the Ponder. That is a little bit concerning. Do I think we go now, or do I think we can just draw more stuff? Like, we don't have the mana, so we need to draw 2 cards to get there. Because this doesn't tap for mana, this doesn't tap for mana. So if we drew another piece of thing, it would have to be the Not of This World, and I don't think that is a reliable thing to do. So I'm going to go for the line that beats 1 Swords to Plowshares. They should fire it off on this turn if they have it. They did not. Do you have a counter spell or another plow? They do indeed. Like, we're not dead, but it's not great. Alright, we have part of our way towards another crack. I suspect we are losing this one. Okay, and there's a Saga. I'm going to play out the Nomads. If they can find themselves a Nadu, they'll just have all the cards in the world, but we're not going to die based on our life total anytime soon. Vampire Hexmage. Okay, we're getting somewhere. They binned over another Nomads. They're going to start cranking out some tokens. They're going to hit us for a little bit, but we've got a nice little cushion to sit on. Our opponent only has 1 card in hand at this point, so... An Urborg, a Bojuka Bog. Like, we're playing it. I'm going to exile my own graveyard in case they have any surgical extractions. Well, we don't really utilise our graveyard anyway. Just having the cards in our graveyard can be detrimental if our opponent's going to try and mess us up. So we're looking for Urborg or any black source. A crop rotation also works here, but comes at a little bit of a cost. I would rather crop rotate for protection, but we'll see how much time we get in this game. Right, so they got Shuko. They get to crack in for what, 5, 6, 7 here? It's not a tiny number, but we still got some turns. Not of This World. Okay, that's a very good one to have here. But we do still need to find another black source. So we've got some Lotus Petals, we've got Urborgs, Verdant Catacombs, Bayou, Swamp. Some hits indeed. And a crop rotation does do it if our crop rotation resolves. A Verdant Catacombs. Okay. So we can play around a daze. We will lose to Force of Will here. But that is just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Can I have a Hexmage? We can. Okay. Maybe we can just squeak over the finish line here. Swords to Plowshares. Okay, I'm going to make a 2020 now. If our opponent has Teferi, we are in trouble. Because Nod of this World does not protect against Teferi. Although a lot of these decks are playing the Voice of Victory, which means they need Voice and a removal spell. Prismatic Ending. Say no to this. And another Plow. Okay, so we're back up to a whole bunch of life. So we definitely had lines that beat our opponent if they don't have like triple white removal in that particular turn cycle. Okay, so this is what? 9, 10, 11. So we'll take one more draw, and then the draw after that has to be good as well, so we can work out if we're dead or not on the next draw. Inquisition of Kozilek, that's not going to cut it. We needed part of our combo there. Okay, yeah, horrible matchup. And we nearly squeaked through in game 2. Our opponent had to have lots of things. Like, obviously, they're not going to fire off the Swords to Plowshares if they don't have another answer, but we already had the other answer covered. The fact they had another answer on top of that was the issue. Alright, on to round 3. For the best Eternal experience this summer, check out Eternal Mania in Hasselt, Belgium from August 8th to 10th. Aside from hosting the European Legacy Masters, they have a whole host of other tournaments from team trios to old school and pre-modern. I will be there playing Legacy and hanging out as a special guest. This will also be the first event that I'll be giving out my own special Marit Lage tokens, so why not come down to enjoy an awesome weekend ran by one of the best TOs in Europe. So we have some Wasteland protection. We have a Once Upon a Time which can dig pretty well, but it's not guaranteed to hit one of the pieces we need. We're on the draw, so we've got another draw step on top of this. Is this one too slow? The bit of fast mana means if we do find one of our combo pieces, we do get to go a little quicker. I'm going to mulligan, I think, though. Nope, that doesn't do it for me either. There we go. Now we're talking. So our deck mulligans pretty darn well, as it turns out. So we keep this. We have an Urborg, a Dark Depths, a Thespian stage. We get rid of this Urborg. I'd very much like to keep this Inquisition, which means we get rid of the Verdant Catacombs here, because if we find another piece of fast mana, we might be able to go a turn quicker. It means we only have access to one piece of green mana, but the way our hand is set up is, in theory, going to be pretty good at just going and doing its thing. Alright, I think I just want to have a... I'm going to play a Lotus Petal out. I'm going to play both Lotus Petals out, actually, because our opponent might be running Spell Pierce. So we may as well just play around as many things as possible. Let's see what our opponent's up to there. They mulliganed quite a lot, so this is going to take a reasonable chunk of our opponent's hand. They could Brainstorm and Protect. Alright, Prismatic Ending and Teferi and Force of Will. I will take Teferi, because that also stops them from having Force of Will available. Not that we care about the Force of Will, but if we have a protection spell that we want to use, maybe it becomes relevant. Prismatic Vista. So our opponent is probably like a fair deck running Prismatic Vista. You don't see a lot of combo decks outside of Omnitel running Prismatic Vista. So it's going to be like a slow, ponderous blue-white deck, which is not a great matchup for us because they have counter magic and a bunch of ways of killing our guy. And Teferi is also pretty annoying too. Are they going to Prismatic Ending one of our petals? That doesn't actually matter if they do. Sure. That's fine by me. We let it exile in case they have some sort of weird line involving Baragos later on. We can make the Baragos slightly smaller by letting the Lotus Petal go to exile, and there's no value for it being in our graveyard. We could have cracked it for mana and done nothing with it. So we play the Thespian stage out. If they have a Wasteland, we can then copy their planes, and then it blanks the Wasteland. Stoneforge Mystic. Sure. What are you going to find? Cauldra is irrelevant to me. Have they got a Cryptic Coat? Also, I don't care about that. This gives them the blue card for Force of Will. That might be the reason they're getting it there. Right, we're not going to play into the sorcery speed removal they've shown us in the form of Teferi and Prismatic Ending, so we're just going to pass and then make a 2020 in our opponent's end step. And if that doesn't work, then we have another Dark Depths to go again. But we took a look at our opponent's hand a while ago. We know all but one card in their hand. So I think it's worth gambling on that one card not being a Swords to Plowshares. Alright, they didn't even want us to take the bet. Alright, Safekeepers, get in here. Disruptor Flute and Not This World also get in here. So there's a bunch of stuff I'm interested in. The Bojuka Bog is not required here. The Ghost Quarter, they might have a Caracas, so I'm going to keep that around. I don't think they have Wasteland, so I'm just going to take out these needles. And then we've got something that looks like this. Do we think our opponent has Harbinger of the Seas? That is something to consider. And that is where we would want some Abrupt Decays. Is that what I want to do here? I don't think so. I think we're just going to go underneath that most of the time anyway. So I'm going to submit like this and then see. We can always reappraise the situation. We've got 6 pieces of discard. This hand does not really go where we need it to, so I'm going to mulligan this one. Thoughtseize into a turn 2 kill. Sure, I'll take that one. And we'll bottom this second Hexmage. Well, I say turn 2 kill. It's not a turn 2 kill. It's a turn 2 2020. But you know what I mean out there. So it's probably going to be a Ponder. Oh, a Tamiyo. Sure. That can chum block, which is actually a really relevant thing. Alright, let's see what they're working with over there. Stoneforge Mystic, Force of Will. I guess I take the Force of Will so that our crop rotation resolves. I wonder if they've got anything that Stoneforge Mystic can grab, like, what's that artifact? It's from the Cowboy set, I think, and it exiles a creature. And then you can make your creature become a copy of that by equipping it. They might have that. Nope, they've just gone for a Cauldron. They're going to go get themselves a little clue here. I don't believe our opponent's running Daze. I think we are just fine to go about our business here. So let's crack this. We'll go and get a Bayou. We'll crop rotate it away. Go and get Dark Depths. Deploy the Hexmage here. Right, so they have 2 mystery cards in hand. They can crack a clue to dig. If they crack a clue, then we're definitely going for it, because that's a real sign of weakness. Otherwise, you would just hold up the Stoneforge and just rest on the plow that you have. If they leave back the Tamiyo, that's also a sign of weakness. Okay, a Ponder. If they shuffle, when we're definitely going for it as well. They shuffled. Okay, so they might just put in the Cauldron here to try and get some beats. So the Cauldron will exile our Marit Lage, because it's a trigger when it deals combat damage. It doesn't matter that our creature is indestructible. So we just take the hit here. Make a 2020. And maybe draw a Sejiri Steppe or something. Or crop rotation would be fine. A Sylvan Safekeeper would also be nice. Another Hexmage. Okay, so we're going to gobble up this Tamiyo. Play our land. Deploy the Hexmage here. And pass. Alright, opponent. Do you have what it takes to get through our Marit Lage? It's certainly possible. Do they have that equipment that I was talking about earlier? They just have a prismatic ending. Sure, that sucks for us. Got something else to put in with the Stoneforge. They're just going to go grab another one. Stoneforge. So they can go grab something like a Batter Skull, which can put them above 20 life. The Ether Spark. I don't think this card is particularly good, to be honest with you. I've not been impressed when I've seen it, and I haven't seen it that much. So whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage, you put that many loyalty counters on this as equipment. You can attach it and put a +1/+1 counter on the creature. -5, draw some cards. -10, add 10 mana. But obviously, they've just gone and got a permanent with a bunch of counters on when we have a Vampire Hexmage, which is a choice. So we need to draw... Does this work? It does work, doesn't it? So we go cast this. Let's dig. And a swing and a miss. Okay. Okay. That's pretty bad news for us. So this is 7 damage, but we can take 6. I think we're just dead here, and we may as well just move on with life and go to the next game. Yeah, our opponent had to draw that card there. And, you know, they've got a bunch of removal in their deck that does it. That's fair enough. So I'm just going to rock in again, I think. We didn't see the Harbinger. I wouldn't be surprised if our opponent has it, but I think our plan is just go underneath that most of the time or disrupt it. Because the longer this game drags on, the worse it is for us anyway, because then you can just create a critical mass of white removal spells. What does this hand do? It doesn't have protection, and it's not particularly fast. I think we can go quicker. Some nice protection, but no way towards the combo. Okay. So we keep these three. We bottom a Sejiri Steppe and probably one of the Spirit Guides. And we play the... I think we play the Dark Depths first. The reason for this, if we draw another piece of fast mana, we can go on turn 2. If we draw a Hexmage, then we play the Urborg. And if we're not expecting a Wasteland, which I'm not, then this is the best way to get around what our opponent could do. Now, if they do a Wasteland, then we can turn this into a different land using our crop rotation. No chump blocker in the form of Tamiyo is always nice to see. A Hexmage. Alright, so this is one of the draws that we planned for. Are you going to counterspell my Force of Will, pitching a Ponder? Sure. We have it next turn anyway. That gets a counterspell out of the way to make our crop rotation more likely to succeed. You got to play here, or are you just being scared and cagey? I think this is a turn to put something on the board if you have it. Alright. Here is a Stoneforge. And there is a Call to Complete. An irrelevant card. Whatever. We have our plan. At least we didn't draw the Sejiri Steppe. That would have been the worst draw. Surgical Extraction on the Hexmage. Sure. I don't think that's a place where our opponent really wants to be. I think their matchup here is good enough. They don't have to be playing bad cards like this. Like if you just have a really horrible matchup, you know, let's say you're like some sort of like Grixis control deck that doesn't really have a lot of edicts or something like that, then sure, you can run some surgicals because you just have so little in the way of tools. So maybe you can get a counterspell and stop some things. Being able to see what we have going is also nice for them. I don't think this is getting better. I am going to go for it. This doesn't work. So our opponent's going to be very annoyed about this. So what happens is when you counter this trigger, it's then going to look for to see if it's got no counters. It's going to trigger again. That is not where our opponent wants to be there. You need to stifle the Thespian stage activation. Consigned Memory doesn't impact this. All right, and then we got the scoop there. All right, a tough matchup, but I think our opponent, because they try the Consigned Memory and they're bringing in Surgical Extractions, they clearly don't have that much experience in this matchup, so we could just prey upon them a little bit. And normally I would much rather be in the blue-white. Well, actually, I prefer playing the green-black Turbodepths, but I think the blue-white control side of things is going to be a lot better here. Generally speaking, if you just play 100 games, you would probably be looking at winning about 60 of them if you were the blue-white deck. All right, on to round 4. This is turn 1 Inquisition, turn 3 kill. That's fine. I'll take that. We've got some more cards to draw that can help us along the way. An Urborg. Well, well, well. I don't mind my opponents playing Urborgs. I'm not going to play out the Dark Depths. The reason for this is if our opponent is playing our deck, then they can combo off of our own Dark Depths. So I'm going to play a Thespian stage and I'm going to Inquisition my opponent here. Let's see what they're working with. Okay, so they have some amount of combo over there themselves. All right, I'm going to take the Necrodominance. And that's going to leave them with some Dark Depths combo. But because we're green, we're going to have way better ways of pushing through. Sylvan Scrying, that's probably not the one we want right now, is it? I could Sylvan Scrying. What are we going to find here? So next turn, I'm just trying to work out what the plan is here. If we just get the Sejiri Steppe, and then we're just ready to go the turn after. So next turn, our opponent makes Marit Lage. They're going to Disruptor Flute. What are you going to name? So the reason we got this is if our opponent names Crop Rotation, we can't go and get the Sejiri Steppe later. See? The exact line that we played around. Makes me feel like I've played lots of Legacy and know what I'm doing sometimes. Alright, there is the Dark Depths. They've gone for the Cold Snap one. Very nice. I like the old border one because I'm an old boomer, even though this is actually a newer printing. But, you know, there's something nice about old borders. They have a 2020. We get to make a 2020. Doesn't matter what land we play here. Yes, it does. We haven't got the Dark Depths in yet. Good. Good work, brain. I'm just trying to work out if there's any reason why we need to do it now. Is our opponent going to be playing Wastelands? It's not impossible. I think we're going to just make the guy now. And if our opponent has an Edict effect and we lose to it, so be it. Alright, and they scoop. They know we have the Sejiri Steppe to push through. So my read from my opponent just playing an Urborg on turn 1 was that we had to sculpt our game in a slightly different way in case they had Dark Depths, and that's exactly how it panned out. Yeah, sometimes it makes you feel smart playing this game. Let's go to the sideboard. They are playing Necro Dominance, so I would like some Abrupt Decays. I do not think Not of This World is going to do anything in this matchup. I think there might be a case for Collector Ouphes and Disruptor Flutes. Ouphes and Flutes, as we call them. I think the Flutes are better than the Needles. So this leaves us like looking like this. But if we're boarding in these things, we don't really want the Once Upon a Times that much. Although we also don't need the Bojuka Bogs. That can come out. Sejiri Steppe looks great. The Boseiju looks great. The Ghost Quarter, pretty solid as well. So we could keep this Needle in and have 2 Needles to name our opponent's Thespian stage if we're falling behind on that front. Sure. We'll try that. So I think our opponent is on a version of Pitch Black, which is a deck we've played before on the channel that I quite like, where you Necro Dominance not to immediately win, but for like a load of value of like casting pitch spells. I think we mulligan this one though. What do we have here? We have an answer to one of their things. If they're going for the Necro route, and then we can combo. Sure, I will keep this. I guess the Bayou goes back. So we need them to not make a turn 1 Necro here. A Thoughtseize. Okay, this is interesting. They can't take us off of Dark Depths, but they can take us off of removal for their Necro. Right, I've taken the crop rotation. That is interesting to me. Okay, so I could have had a turn 1 Necro if that's the thing they have in their hand. Right, I'll play this. We have a crop rotation. We can fire it off if our opponent does something that we want to do some rotatey business with. Obviously, we still don't get the Dark Depths until the right moment because our opponent can just use it to get their own combo going. That is a Hexmage. That is a Dark Depths. Okay, so we hold this up for our Ghost Quarter. I'll play the Thespian stage out here. Should have played out the Urborg, actually. Yeah, I made a mistake here. What land am I sacrificing? I think it is the Thespian stage here, isn't it? I think just having access to green mana is going to be really important here. Thespian stage. Okay. They're going to have a forest. They're going to unmask us. So they're going to probably take our Sylvan Scrying. This is a real weird game. We're probably in the weeds over here. No cards in our opponent's hand. They're living off the top. I think our deck is going to be way better at doing the Marit Lage thing than our opponent's is. This swamp might give our opponent Necro, but then we can Abrupt Decay the Necro, so it doesn't matter. Do I want to play the Sejiri Steppe as a land? I don't think so. This is the way we get through if our opponent manages to combo again. So we have a Boseiju which can take out our opponent's Thespian stage. So I kind of want our opponent to go for the combo again. So they're going to make themselves have another swamp here. This is just a basic. This also means they can Disruptor Flute on Thespian stage and shut us off from being able to do that because their Thespian stage isn't called Thespian stage, which is pretty cool. A Thoughtseize. Alright, let's take a look. I'm going to play out this Urborg. The reason being, if our opponent makes a Dark Depths here and they immediately fire in and make their guy, we at least have an answer then. But like I said, our deck should be better at doing the thing than our opponents. We could try and go for it here and just get something on board to start pressuring our opponent. We know that their life total matters, so I'm going to just go for playing a Hexmage here. If they've got Necro, they want their life total to be high. I think this makes sense. We have to get through this turn of our opponents. Okay, we did not get through this turn of our opponents. That is awkward. We could have beat this by just holding up our stuff. How many cards are you going to draw their opponent? Just 8. Okay, that might not be so bad for us then. An Orcish Bowmasters. Alright, they're going to target our Hexmage, and then we're going to sacrifice the Hexmage so they don't get a guy. Yeah, this was an entirely avoidable situation. But I figured we need to get some pressure going at some point. Because what if they like Thoughtseize into Necro? Interesting. Are we just taking out the Necro and moving on with life? I think so. We'll do it in our opponent's turn so they don't get to draw a card for turn with their Necro. A Disruptor Flute. They're casting this now because they know we have this Abrupt Decay. And if they do it now, then we don't get to... Then they get to draw the card here off the Necro. I'm going to name... What? Thespian Stage. Sure. So they've done the trick that I mentioned before where you turn this into a land and then you can name it. Alright, an interesting game so far. Let's see how punished we are for letting that Necro go. Have they got a big follow-up here? Another stage that they can't activate. Okay. That's fine. A Dark Ritual, something big coming our way. Another Necro. Alright. So if our opponent pays a bunch of life and then tries to do the Dark Depths combo, then we can blow them out with this Boseiju. Alright, very happy to see this. Alright, I will Thoughtseize my opponent, see what they kept out of their 5 cards they get to keep. 2 Rite of Consumptions and a Barrogoyf. I'm going to take the Barrogoyf. That's actually the scariest thing there. And then what we can do is when they go for the Dark Depths line here, we just Boseiju it straight up. Right, so we let this happen first, and then when this becomes a copy and they choose to keep this one, then we blow this up. Our deck is way more kitted out for playing this sort of game than our opponent is. But they do have the explosive power of Necro Dominance. But our opponent doesn't get to draw many cards in the rest of this game, I'll tell you that much. Like, at some point, we'll string together something that can win the game, but it might take a little while. Does this deal damage to target player or planeswalker? Okay, so they can't use this to kill our guys, so we could just play a little guy. They've gone to 1 here. Any guy is pretty good here. That is nothing, so we just pass the turn. Our opponent knows what they have to try and win the game with now. Is it just this Bowmaster, or do they have another threat? They can Rite of Consumption to gain 1 life to draw 1 more card. I don't think that's where our opponent wants to be right now. A Barrogoyf. Okay, that is actively very good. This is 6 damage. If I crack this, it does cost us a turn, so I think I'm not going to crack this. An Elvish Spirit Guide, you say. This will stop the Orcish Bowmaster from attacking us. Alright, I'm going to let this connect this time around. Which does give them more cards for the Necro as well. I think our opponent is running away with this one. It's basically that one turn where we could have stopped a Necro and didn't. They got a Doughty Voidwalker back. That is an unblockable threat. That can be a little bit troublesome for us. I think we should be absolutely fine in this matchup though. I believe we can win game 3. We can draw some more cards. They've gone to 3 so that we don't kill them with the Sejiri Steppe. Very smart. None of this helps us out here. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're going to have to block. There's no way you can force an additional point of damage through. I think our opponent has us here. And they can also just Rite of Consumption. Yeah, I think we're just going to pass over and go to game 3. So I think this is honestly fine. I don't think we have any problems with this matchup. I think we just... There was that one turn where I was like, we can get pressure down and then we can start making it so if our opponent does draw a Necro later on, they don't get to leverage it as much. And that was the one turn they drew the Necro and put it down. So, awkward. Alright, let's just go back in again. What does this hand do? I don't like it, so we're going to mulligan, I think. This does answer a turn 1 Necro at a cost. I don't think I want to pay that cost though. What does this do? It's not great against discard. So this is like turn 1, Pithing Needle on Vampire Hexmage? Question mark, question mark? Or we can throw this back. We can throw back the Pithing Needle and then we have turn 2. Oh, we can go faster. There's some real problems with this one. Some real problems. Okay, we're down to 4. We might be losing this round. Okay, we've already seen this hand, but I will keep this. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a turn 2, 2020. If our opponent just plays the Dark Depths this turn for some reason, that'd be nice. Don't Thoughtseize me. They Thoughtseized me. We could have turned this into that, but it would cost us our petal, and that's not worth it. A Disruptor Flute. All right, I'm going to play the Dark Depths here, so that if we draw another land, we just get to go next turn. We do have this emergency Disruptor Flute if we need it. A Thoughtseize. Be my guest. Take it. Any mana source and we get 2020. Any untapped mana source, I should add. All right, there is our 2020 creator. Do we think our opponent has Edict effects? We didn't see any Edict effects. So if we make this now, it plays around our opponent playing their own Thespian stage. So I think we do it now. Like I said, we didn't see the Edicts. We're on a Multi 4. And we got the match on a Multi 4. I do think our deck is pretty favoured in this. I've played against various mono-black builds before, and the green cards are a big deal. There's a reason we're running them. Our opponent's got other stuff going on, so they're never going to be as good at doing the Marit Lage plan as we are, because we are fully dedicated to it, whereas they've got this Necro Dominance into Beta's plan. Alright, 4 rounds in. We are 3-1, so we're potentially looking at a 4-1 if we can put this last one away. Let's give it a go. This is a turn 3 with Wasteland Protection. Our opponent's running into 4, so we might just be getting clowned by something on turn 1 here. This could just be Echo of Eons. So our opening hand doesn't matter. Alright, Pithing Needle. What am I worried about that our opponent can have? I think it is just the Wasteland, but we'll see what colour fetch they get. That's like Nadu mana, maybe, or it could be Omnitel. They didn't put anything in the graveyard, so we don't really know what they're doing. Alright, we'll name Wasteland. I think our opponent might be on Omnitel, though. But we have a Hexmage around Days next turn. Once Upon a Time. Okay. A Flooded Strand, that doesn't give us any more information. Tundra. Is this Nadu mid-range? Crystalline Sliver. Okay, is our opponent playing that weird deck from the other day I played against? This might even be the same player, actually. Alright, can I have a friend? Alright, our opponent is Hellbent. We are pretty close. We're 1 piece of fast mana off of going next turn, and our opponent has nothing going on. So this is the deck that tries to make infinite slivers using Memnite. It's pretty funny. There is the Memnite. Not holding it for the combo. Makes Lotus Petal. Okay, I will play this. I will cast this Sylvan Scrying. I will go and get Thespian Stage. I will deploy Thespian Stage. And I will pass. We're covered from Wastelands anyway, so we get to play around Prismatic Ending here. And just make a 2020 end step. Alright, 1-0. So, our opponent probably has a bunch of plows. So, these sorts of things look pretty good. They have... Their combo is basically the only thing I'm scared of, and Disruptor Flute is very good against their combo. Abrupt Decay, possibly interesting here. I can't really remember everything in that deck. So, this is not a Bojuka Bog matchup. I don't think it's a Ghost Quarter matchup, but I honestly don't know if they can squeeze Wastelands in there or not. So I think these are the more important cards to come in. So we could just go... The Pithing Needles become Disruptor Flutes, so that we can at least name their combo. And then we have some protection. Do we want any Abrupt Decays? I don't think we do. And we're just going to send it in like this. I think the Duress is still good here, because they have counter magic. Let's try this. I think they have access to Collector Ouphe, but we don't really care about Collector Ouphe. What does this hand do? It needs to find something off of this Once Upon a Time. But it does have double hand disruption and then protection as well. Alright, I'm going to reluctantly keep this one. Maybe it's because of the nature of my opponent's deck, where they have to try and have this in their opener. So that is step one of what they wanted. Okay, so we will cast this Once Upon a Time. We found none of the pieces we wanted. Okay. I will take this. Do we take the Spirit Guide or we just take just the solid green source? I think I'm going to take the Spirit Guide. I'm going to play this and I'm going to Thoughtseize. Veil of Summer. Okay. Am I going to die this turn? I'm just going to make infinite guys. That'd be pretty funny. I think we should be fine on the play against our opponent's deck. We'll see. They do have Wastelands. Good to know they have Wastelands. We can reappraise the situation in game 3. But we still have the Disruptor Flutes to play around this anyway. I'll play out this Thespian stage. And I will use it to Inquisition my opponent now. I will take the Hatchery Sliver. That's part of their combo. Get out of here. So this is why I'm not boarding in the Abrupt Decays, because they're quite often going to have Crystalline Sliver, and we don't get to target their stuff once they have that in play. Cavern of Souls, naming Sliver, no doubt. There it is. They're not playing the Crystalline Sliver. I guess they want to dig. Can I resolve a Hexmage here? I'll play this Dark Depths. So if they try and wasteland this, we get to Hexmage and get it back. And if they... I guess the downside here is if they get a wasteland off of this Once Upon a Time. That could be quite irritating. It was not a wasteland. Okay. And then next turn we can Hexmage it. And then when they try to wasteland it, we then Thespian stage it. A Tundra, 3 cards in hand. One of them is a mystery. It's probably going to be the Crystalline Sliver. I feel pretty confident that we can put this one away. But it's not a sure thing. I will play this. I will pass. So we even beat Infinite Memnites here. Because we have a guy that flies over the top. They're going to bash with the guy into our first striker? Probably not. Let's go to end step here. So this is the order you have to do it. Also, we want to float mana for this first. So this is the order we have to do it. So we sacrifice this, targeting our Dark Depths. If they wasteland, then we make a copy. If not, then we just get our guy. If they wasteland and the wasteland is burnt, then we make a copy. If you do it the other way around, it doesn't work because then you just have this instead. Okay, so then they're going for the line that we said that they would go for. And we make our 20/20. Our opponent's got 2 mystery cards in hand. So it can't be Force of Will and a removal spell. Just go to attacks. In with a friend. They floated white to bluff a thing, and we come away with a pretty bread and butter 4-1 with the deck. Pretty nice. We had some pretty odd matchups today for sure, though. Let's talk about the deck. So, as you know, I am a big fan of this deck. I think the fact that it is proactive, so that you have a game plan against everything of just, let's make a massive guy as quickly as possible, that is really good to have. We have universal disruption in the form of Thoughtseize, Inquisition, and Duress. And you see a lot of decks at the moment playing things like Disruptor Flute in their sideboards. So we have that in the main and it's pretty good. And the Pithing Needle comes up surprisingly often. Yes, we're naming Wasteland a bunch, but there are definitely some games where you're like, oh, I've got this Pithing Needle that just happens to be really good against your sneak attack or whatever. And that can really change the dynamic of a lot of games. So I think the tools here are really strong. There's lots of tutors, so that certainly helps. Maybe Wizards of the Coast will be kind and print us another tutor or another thing that goes to Dark Depths one day. We will wait and see on that one. But yeah, big fan of this deck. I think this particular build is looking pretty good. I think the Disruptor Flute here is a bit of a flex slot. I think I would be happy if I played this as another Not of This World or another piece of discard. That is what I would swap it out for. You could put it into another Once Upon a Time if you just want to have a more reliable way of comboing. I think if you're worried about just gold fishing, then you turn this Disruptor Flute into a Once Upon a Time. But if you're more worried about having some interaction and beating it, then Disruptor Flute looks better there. Sideboard-wise, we brought in the Disruptor Flutes a fair bit. I think they're probably somewhere where I'm looking to keep them in here. I think this could be a copy of Defend the Rider, which is up here if you haven't seen it. So it's 1 mana, choose one, target permanent you control, so that can save you against Wastelands as well. Becomes indestructible until end of turn and gains hexproof. And then you can also instead create a 1/1 token creature. So that token creature will eat Sheoldred's Edict. So that is the other option for this second Disruptor Flute. I'm still not convinced which one I prefer, but I think given the meta is just kind of wide open, something like Defend the Rider is a little bit niche to me, because it basically says this card is good if your opponent is playing Edict. That's the only time that I would want it over the other tools we have. And that's quite a niche thing when the decks that run more than one Edict are a very low percentage of the meta right now. Ley lines obviously are a must, and it won us a game, so good job. Yeah, I think this deck is just really sweet, and I just want more and more printings in old borders for this, please. So if anyone from Wizards of the Coast is watching this, get on that. Where is our old border not of this world? And like Collector Ouphe and Urborg. How is it not old bordered Urborg? Anyway, I digress. I am raving a little bit here. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and if you're thinking about playing this deck, then check out my Patreon. I have a guide to this. And there will be a sideboard guide up for this particular build. I don't know if it's going to go up before this comes out, but it's going up the same week this video comes out. So keep an eye open for that one. And if you want any of the cards from this, check out my sponsor, 3-for-1 Trading. They are linked in the description. They have some pretty good deals on a bunch of stuff. They even have some really nice foil Dark Depths if you're looking to really bling this one out. All right, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbodepths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.